Hey, Joel, don't tell anybody it's live right now, but I only got the timer up so we can get more people views. So, oh, we already have people watching us though.
No problem.
This is behind the scenes. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. This is gonna be so fun.
I'm so excited.
This is like the green room pre-talk, right?
Yeah. Using biz terms here.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
for sure. Um, do you feel like writing a joke on the spot here?
On the show?
Well, I'll give you. So I've got a medical disclaimer, and there's a spot in there where you can add a little joke. Let me put it in our private chat.
Cool.
And do you feel, short notice, but you coach people on writing jokes, right? In a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So
Oh, and we're on YouTube. Are you aware?
yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's the only way I can talk to you is if we're actually in the stream. Otherwise, we're
okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that you knew that
Yeah.
we're on. Okay. Sorry.
I'll officially start it in a couple minutes, but do you want me to be quiet and give you a minute to think?
Oh, you're good. Sorry, I was just pulling it up on YouTube, so I was going to share
okay.
the link. What's the topic? I see it right here. Okay, the medical disclaimer. Sorry. I was on YouTube. On the YouTube.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I put it secretly in our chat on here. So
Okay.
So then I'll let you read it too with your punchline in there.
Okay, cool.
You game?
I'm game.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. All right. Should we officially start this? Any questions, or you want me to give you a couple of minutes to come up with something?
No, I think I'm good. I'm ready to rock.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it. Let's remove that fluffy thing. And hey, we're live, everybody. Are you struggling to give up sugar? Have you ever wondered why it's so hard? Well, this episode is for you. Stick around because I'm going to be talking with comedian Joel Byars about his stint going sugar-free. Joel, don't tell me. I don't even know yet if you're still sugar-free. I'm going to do a quiz here for everybody, but let's make it a surprise even for me. So, welcome everyone to Keto Chat Live. I'm your host, Carole Freeman, master's in nutrition and clinical health psychology. I'm a board-certified keto nutrition specialist. I primarily specialize in helping women 40 plus follow a keto diet for sustainable weight loss. And today I'm so lucky to have a special guest co-host, Joel Byars. He's a comedian, award-winning podcaster, trophy husband, with over 10 years of experience performing comedy, suitable for everyone from grandkids to grandparents and even granddogs. I'm a grand dog mother myself, so I appreciate that. Not only has he toured the world doing stand-up, but he's also interviewed over 300 comedians like Jeff Foxworthy, Cedric the Entertainer on his award-winning Hot Breath podcast. So welcome, Joel.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Carole. I'm so excited to be here.
Are you ready to do the medical disclaimer? I gave you a very short assignment, joke right.
I'm ready. Do I read the whole thing?
Yeah, read the whole thing. That's legally. We just got to make sure that we're not giving, Yeah.
So you're putting this on me. So if somebody goes and tries to do that, they're gonna be like, "But Joel said it, not Carole." No, it's medical disclaimer. This show is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any condition. If you have any questions or concerns related to your specific medical condition, please contact Dr. Obvious. And seriously, please contact your personal health care professional.
Oh, thank you so much for being game for that on the spot joke writing challenge. So
no problem.
I'm so excited you're here. I've got a quiz to engage our viewers, our listeners right now. So those of you joining us, I see we've got people live. So here's your quiz for this show: is how many days did Joel give up sugar recently? How many days? So put your guesses in the chat now, and we'll reveal it in a bit. So, so Joel, where are you joining us from?
I am in ATL, Atlanta.
Oh, are you at the airport? Is that ATL the airport? I'm in PHX.
Phoenix?
Yes.
Oh no. I'm near the airport. I'm not far from the airport. Yeah.
I'm an SEA transplant. Let's see. Test your
Seattle?
airport knowledge here. Yes.
Nice.
That's an easy one. Yeah. 27 years in Seattle and just been here almost 2 years, and I love it.
Yeah, I've been in Atlanta I've lived in Georgia majority of my life, and then been in Atlanta for several years now with my wife.
Have you worked hard to get rid of the accent? I don't really hear.
Oh, I worked real hard. Mama took me to private school, and she took me to liberal arts school to not sound like this right here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I believe you.
Sorry. I call that that's my redneck Tourette's. I definitely have an accent in there, but
I grew up in Oregon. Can you hear that redneck accent in me? We talk about getting a wash rag to clean your face and
wash rag. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Is it? My mom always did the come here. Let me clean your face off.
Oh yeah, my dad would do that for sure. My dad would do that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, Joel, I didn't give you the overview of what we're going to do. I figure I'd just kind of give, a personal interview first about how you got into comedy and how you got into quitting sugar. And I'm going to use, so this may be different than what you're used to, but I'm going to use your quitting sugar as a teaching moment on the show here. So I'm going to talk about, symptoms. How would people know they may have a problem with sugar? Why it's so hard to give up? I really nerd out on the brain chemistry of addiction stuff. So, and then I'm going to give my top tips for how people can get off sugar without cravings. And and then we'll tell everybody how they can connect with you. But, let's talk about you first. I'm
with it. Bring it on. I'm game for anything. No question too personal. It's this health journey is definitely something like as I've gotten in my 30s, I'm taking more and more seriously. But please don't hesitate to ask anything. You won't offend me. I want to talk vulnerably to hopefully help other people, because I can just see the difference physically, mentally, emotionally, just based on what I am eating. So I'm excited to talk to you about this as well. But I didn't mean to derail your interview. I just wanted to put put that little asterisk to please ask away, because I'm learning right along with everyone here listening.
Well, the show title is Keto Chat Live, so it's less, it's not totally formal. It's more of a chat format. So, I have some things I want to ask about, but also we can go any which way we want during this. So, also, I have a note to myself, because when I do my transcripts for the show, I start every sentence with and or so and so. So I have to remember to try not to say so many of those so's and ands. I don't know if it's working or not, but
you're doing great.
How did you get into comedy, Joel? You've been doing it about 11, 12 years?
Yeah, February 1st, 2010 was my first time doing it. So I've been doing it a little over 12 years now. I'd always wanted to be a comedian and do comedy. I loved watching comedy growing up. I was always the funny kid, but I didn't actually decide to pursue comedy until my senior year of college. I was about to graduate and was like, well, I have nothing to lose. Sally Mae took it all, so might as well try this little comedy dream. And then as soon as I did it, it was like taking the blue pill in the Matrix. I was immediately, as soon as I did it, everything in my life immediately became revolved around getting as good at this as possible and making this my full-time career, which I'm fortunate enough to say is now the case.
Oh, after college, how'd your parents take that news then?
Well, my mom has always instilled like that growth mindset within me, and always was sure I was aware that I had a special gift that I would be sharing with the world. And so she was always supportive for it, and always not like what took you so long, but yeah, I've known this your whole life type deal. So there was no reservations when I had to move back in with her to be a dishwasher with a college degree and things like that. You know what I mean?
Wait, I'm going to guess you're an only child.
I have 2 older sisters.
Oh, the baby. Okay, that was the other
baby.
option. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The baby. Yeah.
You're the sweet, innocent one that can do no wrong, probably. Right?
Yeah. Especially if you ask my sisters. Yeah, I'm sure they would say that. Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm following.
Yeah, but it's all been supportive. I feel very fortunate that I haven't really had anyone in my career who was like, "Are you sure? Or when are you going to quit this comedy silliness and get a real job?" So fortunately, I've had a lot of supportive people around me in this journey, because when you're on stage, it's usually the opposite when you're bombing or comedians being competitive. So it's good to have those family members in your corner.
Well, and how did you maintain your drive to keep going, right? Because a lot of times comedians have to suffer through a career that they hate, and then they're like, "Oh my God, this comedy thing is what I really want to do," and the contrast is much more motivating. And when you don't have a safety net, you got to work a little harder. I know there's both ways can be equally hard, right? So you had the cushion of being able to live at home and the support of your family. Especially being as young as you were at that time, what drove you to be as successful as you are?
I think it was always just part of the process. I never lost the perspective of me, working at Enterprise all day and then being out all night at open mics and then being up again at 6 to work at Enterprise again, write jokes on my lunch break and then do open mics at night, and doing that for over a year, saving up a nest egg to then move into a studio apartment in the hood of Atlanta where I'm waiting tables and washing dishes and refilling mini bars. All of those sacrifices were in service of the bigger picture and in service of just what I knew was going to happen. So when I did bomb and beat myself up, I would have to remind myself that this is all part of it. Everyone struggles. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But just maintaining that it's just what I wanted to do. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I would rather be out at an open mic at 1 a.m. bombing than having to be up early, to go rent cars and things. It was always just in hindsight, it's kind of I used to play sports, and I played football. And we would have 3-a-day practices for team camp or whatever in the summers. In hindsight, I'm I don't know why I would ever do that and could never do it again. But when you're in it, it's just part of that process. And when you're working towards a bigger vision, I think it always helps to have that reminder that you're working towards something bigger than just this immediate moment of discomfort.
So it sounds like you did have that contrast of a day job you knew you didn't want to make your career, so you had that as a motivator to keep going with the bombing at night.
For sure. Yeah, you need that. Yeah.
Well, and you have a successful podcast. How long that's been going, and when did you get started with that?
Yeah, that's been going I think almost 6 years now. I think this summer it'll be 6 years, and it started as a way for me to interview Atlanta comedians. I've always been a fan and champion of Atlanta comedy. That's why I still live here and never decided to move to an LA or New York, even though I could have. But I really wanted to create a grassroots foundation, self-made opportunities from here in Atlanta. And I wanted to showcase Atlanta comedians that were on Last Comic Standing, NBC's stand-up competition. So I set a goal to interview all 10 or 11, all 11 of the Atlanta comics on Last Comic Standing. And then from there, it just kind of kept going. I was well, I've already started. I took a little bit of a break to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I had a friend just be well, just keep going. Just keep doing it, and it became the show I wish existed which is how I make a lot of decisions of like, do I wish this existed? So my favorite moments of any comedy podcast were when they were nerding out about how to write a joke or how to negotiate a contract or how to book a late night set and things like that. Those are my favorite moments. So I made a show that was just that. That's like inside the actor studio for comedians. And it turns out other people enjoy that as well. I've seen other shows come up that are like similar to that vein as well, of just comedians really like getting into the process and everything. But it all started with me just creating a show I wish existed. And now it's just become so much more.
I think that comedians that are listening right now, listen to what he's saying. Because I think there's a lot of comedians that think that, you know, newer comedians that think like, oh, I want to start a podcast, and they just want to, you know, trash talk with their friends all day long. But think about like who's going to want to listen to that? I mean, I think some people think, oh, that's what you do as a comedian. You start a podcast and I'm hilarious, so people will just want to listen. But if you're a big name and you have a following, people will listen to you talk garbage with your friends, right? But if you're just starting out, like think about what Joel's talking about. Like, what would you like to hear? What would be of value to you? What would you take your time out of your day to listen to that would help you improve as a comedian? Think about starting that podcast rather than, you know, you just want to talk into a microphone with your friends for an hour or two.
Exactly. And there's so many. I think it's like, gosh, it's like 70 or 80% of podcasts on iTunes have less than like 10 episodes. It's like belligerent how like just the turnover rate and churn of people wanting to start a podcast. So yeah, you want to make sure it's centered around something you're super interested in, something you're super passionate about, because there's going to be moments like anything you're pursuing. There's going to be moments where, you know, you're up at 6 a.m. editing to get it out by 8 a.m. because that's what you promised your 4 listeners. So you got to do those things, you know, and it's making sure that you're creating a show that you would listen to regardless of whether or not other people were listening to it. So it's true with everyone wanting to start a podcast. It's work.
100%. Yeah. Well, I'm 1 year into this, and this is episode 40. So thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
And I this is where I can plug. I'm actually speaking at a podcasting conference in May in Orlando, Florida. And Podfest. Yeah. Have you ever been?
Oh yeah. I'm good friends with Chris.
Okay.
They got it started. I did Podfest pre-pandemic.
Okay.
Great. You're gonna have a great time. I met so many great people there. It's gonna be awesome.
This is their, you know, they took whatever, a year or two off, right? Like a lot of things did. And they're anticipating having over 2,000 people in attendance. So it should be pretty darn big. But yeah, I have you can use my discount code Keto Carole to get, I think it's 20% off tickets. I think that's what it is. So come hang out in Orlando.
It's worth it. Yeah. For anyone listening, that conference is well worth it, that you just get access to so many people and learn so much from the best in the game. Like, yeah, it's totally worth going.
I'm going to be speaking about live video podcasting. So
awesome.
Yeah. Can't wait. I've never been to Orlando, so I'm sure in May it'll be nice and miserable. I've been to Austin, Texas during like June and July, so I can't imagine May in Orlando's much worse, right?
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah. They taught me last time I was in Austin that they talk about how many shirt day it is. Do they do that in Georgia, Atlanta?
Shirt day.
Yeah, so like oh, it's a 3 shirt day, like you sweat through 3 shirts, like how humid it is.
Oh no, I haven't heard that.
Ooh, it's a 3 shirt day today. Oh, it's a hot one.
Nobody in Georgia wears shirts. That's probably why they don't.
It's a 3 wife beater day.
Exactly. Yeah.
3 NFL jersey day, maybe.
Just body tats. It's probably just body tattoos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I expect Florida is too. I mean, I've been to Miami Beach. I've never been to Orlando though. So.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Different areas. I can't wait. Well, okay. Let's talk about your sugar journey. When did it start? When did you start to think maybe it's a problem?
When did it start? What was rock bottom?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what's interesting is sugar is so fascinating to me just because of how everywhere it is and how poisonous it is at the same time, and just the politics, the business behind it. But that's all things I got into, I think, as I've gone into the journey more. But I think where it started is really growing up. My mom was always mindful of sugar intake. Like we never really had sugary cereals. You know, like Crispix was an edgy day, you know, or Frosted Mini Wheats, which they used to advertise that help kids focus. And then I think ended up getting sued about that. But it's incredible, the advertising. But she was always very mindful of like our sugar intake, and just, she was a teacher. So she was probably around a bunch of kids who were on sugar a lot, and just, she had the foresight to realize, oh, this probably isn't great. So, you know, as an up and coming football player, you do life hacks, you know, like bowl of cornflakes, and then you glaze it in a pound of table sugar until it's like a sugar fondue, you know, like I did all that, you know. So honestly, never saw it as a problem until maybe I started tracking as I've gotten older. I'm 34 now, but like probably late 20s, I started keeping track of like just day to day, tracking my time. What am I eating? How is my sleep affecting what I'm eating? What am I drinking affecting? Like I quit alcohol. Like I'm sober now. Like I quit completely. I quit for last year and then started drinking again in January, and was like, I just don't want to, what I noticed, a direct connection between me drinking and then anxiety, depression, and then also sugar cravings on top of that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't think of like a moment where I was like, I need to get my life together. Cause there's been several, I don't know if, I don't know, because I've never been diagnosed or gone for therapy. So I don't know if I would say I have like a binge eating disorder, but I've definitely gone through stages or like a phase of like deprivation and then just binging, or like I've been driving and eating cereal before.
We'll talk about that as one of the symptoms of addiction. Yeah.
I don't know what that says, or like going to a movie theater and just have like a bunch of like terrible food and just eat it in there. Like, so I would catch myself doing this and then try to retrace maybe the cause and effect and things. So I don't think there's a singular moment. I think it's like an accumulation of like, oh, I'm doing this again, after literally saying I'm never going to do this again. And then as I'm doing it, like saying I'm never doing this again, you know? So
yeah,
I don't, yeah.
It sounds like your perspective is more of like a biohacker. Like you're just trying to figure out how to feel the best possible in your human experience, right? So you notice alcohol made you feel better avoiding it. And so the sugar is along those lines as well too.
Sugar for sure, directly connected to anxiety and depression and all. And then just physically, I probably have some sort of body dysmorphia too, where like I eat something bad and then immediately see in the mirror like a different person, you know.
Oh.
So I haven't like gone to therapy for any of that, but these are just things I've observed and kind of like I'm aware of, at least, you know.
Well, and I have a master's degree in psychology, trained to be a clinical, diagnose all that stuff. I have a different perspective though on binge eating disorder. Okay. And it gets labeled as like a mental health problem, but it's really just our brain and our body reacting to hyperpalatable foods in the way that like we're designed. So it's a mismatch of like, human evolution. We've been on this planet for 200,000 years and we're designed to seek out high reward foods, but they were rare. And so food manufacturers have figured out a way of engineering these foods that are very high reward that make us crave them and overeat them. And so our body's just doing what it should do in when those foods are in our presence. We get, but we're taught that like, oh no, you should just, all foods fit and you should have moderation, Joel. Just control yourself. And if you can't, you have a mental illness. Like, so even though I am trained in that field, I have a totally different perspective on that. Like, I don't think that actually should be a mental illness. It's more of like, it's unrecognized that That's just the way our brains are wired. We're wired to eat those foods, and then we feel guilty, right? Because we're told, oh, that must be something wrong with you because you can't control yourself around those things. But I'll tell you, like, most people can't control themselves around that. It's more rare that the person, that they can eat one handful of candy and then they're like, oh, I'm good, I don't need any more for a few days. Like that's mental illness, I think.
I think that's what helped me is like realizing that I'm not alone in doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I think the step one, I mean, everything is so gradual. It's like you want everything overnight, but it takes years of like consistency, but of just like trying for a little while and then maybe falling back and then trying for a little while and falling, like it's just constantly just going back and forth. But I think what helped me keep positive momentum is just not beating myself up. So if I did do something where I was like, I'll never eat a box of cereal alone again, and then I do, I stopped beating I stopped beating myself up. I didn't say I'm stopping this. It's like, if I do this, I'm just not going to beat myself up. And that was probably the first step in my like long journey of like getting more just like control and mindful about my eating is just, if I'm not 100% perfect or whatever, I'm not beating myself up about it. And that's really helped me in realizing other people, this $1 trillion industry designing food to exploit our biology. Like, yeah, you may want to eat an entire box of cereal because they spent good money to make sure that you want it, so.
There's a fun book, if you haven't read it, the Dorito Effect. Explains a lot of this, that how they manufacture these foods to make us crave them and overeat them. And it's interesting though, because, mental health professionals aren't trained this way. Most dietitians and nutritionists aren't trained to know this, and doctors aren't. And so they're out there telling you like, well, just exercise more and just have portion control, eat less calories and move more. Right. But all the while the food manufacturers like, we make more money. You just keep, portion control. Wink, wink.
Right. Low. It's low fat and then high in sugar. Yeah.
Well, and Joel, you figured out something too. So somebody I've learned a lot from is her name is Joan Ifland, and she is a processed food addiction. She has a PhD in processed food addiction. She literally wrote a textbook on this. And so she says one of the keys to not going into relapse is to focus on the physical pain of eating, sugar or whatever substance you're trying to stay away from, and not getting stuck in the guilt of it. She says the guilt will keep you in relapse. It will keep you using that substance because it makes you, it numbs out the guilt. But if you focus on like how physically bad it made you feel, that will help you avoid future relapse. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we tend to want to get stuck in the ruminating, like beating ourselves up. And then we just need another box of cereal to make ourselves feel better because we feel so bad about ourselves, right?
Yeah, cereal. That's
So are you still sugar-free? How many days?
I'm mostly sugar-free.
Okay.
Because I'm mindful of like me going feast or famine to where I've done challenges before or whatever and white knuckle it and then just fall off the rails. So it's like each time I do something, I get better and better and just more mindful. So I did sugar-free for 30 days and then
good for you.
My in-laws, thank you. And then I took a before. This was my first time taking a before and after photo.
Okay.
And not a photo every day, but like I took a photo on day 1 and then day 30. That was a game changer. To see in 30 days the effect of not having sugar, I was fairly blown away, and I'm gonna keep that photo forever as like motivation of like it's more than just like me trying to deprive myself. There's so many benefits, and anytime I've gone off sugar, so many amazing things have just happened, and I've just been happier than ever. So I definitely want to make this part of my lifestyle. But I say that to say, on day 30, my in-laws came into town and they brought like a homemade cake. So on the next day, I had some with them, but I didn't. I mean, since then, like my wife has brought home ice cream. I didn't have any. She made granola, which I would normally be all over. So I'm not approaching it from the way of like I'm depriving myself. I'm trying to have a healthier mentality around it's just I just don't really want it. I think sometimes I would eat it because I felt like I should, or something like that, like when in Rome type deal. But I'm just trying to be more mindful about listening to like, well, what do I really want? And I think once you get away from that pull of sugar long enough and being mindful around consumption of it and seeing the cause and effect of when you do it and when you don't, I think that's just a big motivator for me now is like, I do have a lot of things I want to do and it's a lot of work that I'll need to do. And if I'm half the time having anxiety or depression or worried about my brain going everywhere because of just the neurochemistry of consuming sugar, there's the laundry list of things that sugar does for us that's bad is like infinite. But so I've had it a little bit, but it's honestly not even something that like, oh, when it gets to Friday, I'm gonna get to have my cake or like it's not like that. It's just I'm trying to have a mindful balance, and it's it's a daily thing. I'm taking it one day at a time, like, but I'm just trying to maintain mindfulness and thinking of the bigger picture of that piece of cake looks like a panic attack tomorrow. That's what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just think of it more in those terms.
That's a great technique. So where's my stack of Post-it notes? I don't have them handy, but I'll recommend for my clients that struggle with, certain, on keto, we're avoiding sugar, we're avoiding processed, refined, grain products and things. And so sometimes things that are maybe something that they're very attached to, I'll have them write the name of that thing on a piece of paper, a note card or Post-it note. And on the other side, focus on all the pain that brings you. Right. So for you, that's what you're doing already. That box of cereal is a panic attack. And so you're associating those in your brain. And that's a really powerful way at creating an aversion to it. So so have you ever had food poisoning from anything you ate?
I don't think so. No.
So you've ever heard of people though that like, they had shrimp that one time and now they can never even look at it you can create a powerful aversion to something if you associate that thing with the pain of it. And if you immediately think of the pain of it, so for food poisoning for people, their body like violently creates that aversion to that food. And so that's one of the tricks. You're figuring these out very smartly, like, associate that food with the pain. Whereas often when we are stuck in a craving cycle, our brain keeps fantasizing about the pleasure it brings us. And when you're stuck in the fantasy about the pleasure of it, that increases cravings and it makes it harder that's where you feel deprived, right? But what you're focusing on is like, oh, that equals a panic attack. I'm not deprived. I'm choosing not to have that. Yeah.
Like at the crash, then I'll just want to nap and then be worthless the rest of the day or week or whatnot. Why do we, I won't say I do this. I tend to want to self-sabotage and like be on a roll. And then, but even it's like through like the day, it's like, oh, I've eaten really healthy today. I better have 5 tablespoons of peanut butter at 7:00 to completely cancel out any positive momentum. And I've caught myself doing that several times in several instances with food of like ending up self-sabotaging.
Well, have you heard of the book, You Are the Mountain? Oh, it was popping up all over my TikTok and I just got a copy of it. And it's all about self-sabotage and how, there's not a mountain in our way. We're the ones that is creating the obstacle for us. So I'm just a couple chapters into it, but basically it talks a lot about, when we have things that we do that we self-sabotage, it's because we have conflicting values or things that we want to happen, right? So on the one hand, you want all that mental clarity, you want to feel awesome and amazing and be productive and accelerate your career. And on the other hand, there's something else that you're using that sugar or maybe the peanut butter, because it does the same thing, to soothe yourself for. So it's like identifying what am I using that for? What am I, using it to avoid? Or, so basically you've got two different needs. That one need is to be clear and not anxious and not depressed. And the other need is to soothe yourself from something. Right. And so the part of the, the work is then figuring out, so why am I using the peanut butter? What is it doing for me? And what is my real need? So it, not that it immediately is clear, but taking some, steps, what happened before you had to have the peanut butter. And we'll talk about so that, or is it, so our addiction in our brain is kind of I think of it as an autopilot program. And so foods that we can become addicted to, they're things that, in nature, they were rare and valuable, right? So honey, for example, or fruit, historically, it's been, very seasonal, hard to find. And fruit, even historically, has been little tiny things, right? So have you ever seen natural berries on a trail versus the one you can, strawberries in the store are this big,
right?
Strawberries in the trail are this big, right. So they were like, we seek them out and we try to eat as much as possible, but they were self-limiting. Nuts as well, right? So nuts. Have you ever seen, real nuts where you've got to crack the shell and pick them out with the picker and it takes you half an hour. And by the time you get it, you're like, that's not that good. Now we can buy like 5-pound bags in Costco and they're roasted and they're sugared and salted and you can eat them by the handful, right? So, nuts, if we get them the way that they were existing in nature, they're hard to overeat. Like almost everything was that way, but we're still wired to try to get as much as possible. So our brain memorizes, right? So, try to find the honey every year. The brain would memorize, this time of the year, the temperature, the time of the day, where you walked on the trail to find the honey in the first place. So our brains still do that. And so every time you've used sugar or maybe, the sugar in the peanut butter, because what's even more rewarding to our brain is sugar and fat together. So peanut butter is the perfect sugar and fat together. Like that's even more rewarding to our brain. And so every time you've used that, your brain memorizes everything about that, like how you were feeling, what time of the day, where it is, right? So you might have a habit loop going on that like the end of a stressful day, after you've had dinner, after you sit in this chair, you get this beverage, and then your brain goes, now it's peanut butter time. So figuring out, so they can be like a hardwired groove in the brain that it's just, you cue the first part of that autopilot series and it's almost impossible to turn it off once it gets cued. And so the trick of that then is if you find every night you're like, oh gosh, why do I want this so bad? Like one thing is you can just not have it in the house, then it makes it impossible to have it, right? But sometimes it's figuring out what's the first cue that tells your brain that we're going to have peanut butter, right? So it could be, you finished dinner and you did the dishes or something, right? Or for some of my ladies that struggle with like giving up wine in the evening, it's like how they relax and they always went and sat in this chair and they, so kind of figuring out what is the whole autopilot series and doing something before the first cue of that. So it's basically an instruction manual in your brain that's like, these things all happen in this order. You got to figure out what number one is. And before number one gets cued, do something different. So create a whole new routine in the evening for yourself. And then your brain will actually be awake and alert and going, oh, what are we doing? This isn't the peanut butter autopilot. This is something new. I need to pay attention because we're learning something new here. So that's one, that may be what's going on of why it's hard in the evening to not have that one thing. So.
Ooh, that's gold. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love that.
Well, let me just give people, I've got the 8 signs that you may have sugar addiction, but these can also be any other food substance, right? So one is, this is a fun fact, I think, is cravings. So most people don't realize that cravings are not normal. Cravings only go with addictive substances, right? You may have a hankering for a steak or something like that, but you're not craving it so much that you're obsessed that you will, eat it while you're driving in your car, right? Or spend your last penny on getting a steak. Like having an urge or desiring or an appetite for healthy food is one thing, but anything you crave is a sign of addiction. Weird thing because we're so used to having cravings, right? So Number 2 is tolerance. So it's when you use it, you find yourself using larger and larger quantities over time. That appears for most people as sugar. And I'll tell you too, I grew up a sugar addict. Okay. Like my dad's love language was candy. And he was a police officer and he worked night shift. And so to get him through his night shift, he packed his pockets full of candy that he ate all day long. And yes, he does have diabetes now. And whatever was left over. So when we got up in the morning, we could go into his police coat and pull out whatever candy was left in his pockets as like, dad cared about us type of thing. And I remember going over to my friend's house and they had like a big bowl of M&Ms on their dining room table. And it was just sitting there. It was just sitting there. I was like, how have you not eaten that in 5 minutes? Like, why is it just there? Yeah, exactly. And then you talked about the cereal growing up too. We were so poor, we couldn't buy any brand name cereals, no sugared cereals, right? But bag of sugar on the counter, we could have as much of that as we wanted, right? Like, so I say that when I was growing up, my mom meant well, but she wasn't that great of a cook. But there were only 2 flavors of food we had. It was ketchup and sugar. And
hilarious. And ketchup is sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Vinegar sugar and sugar. So yeah. Do you figure out the trick? Like if you put the milk on the cereal first, then more sugar will stick to the flakes, right?
Whoa. I don't know. Because I guess part of me didn't want it to stick because at the end I could just have my sugar soup. I just had my own little
You wanted the benefit. Yeah. So we figured out, if you get the flakes wet first, then some of the sugar will stick to the flakes. So
I don't know if I ever was mindful enough. I was probably in a hysteria the whole time I was doing it. Just
so I want to say I empathize with everyone, struggles with sugar. And when I started my keto journey, I did it because I was in a car accident. I had a brain injury. I had crushed legs. Like I did it for medical reasons. And I was so afraid I was going to fall off the wagon with my sugar addiction so everything that I'm going to teach you here is things that I threw at my own approach. Like everything I'd ever studied about the way that, the addiction part of the brain, I used this approach so that I could give myself the best chance at healing and not falling off the wagon. So I had a medical reason to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sabotage myself with my own sugar issues. So I get it. So we were talking about the top signs or symptoms that you may have a sugar addiction. Number 3 is repeated attempts to quit. That's something that you shared too, Joel, that you like, you've tried many times. If something wasn't an issue for us, we wouldn't keep trying to quit it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Number 4, spending a lot of time thinking about it, going to buy it and or consuming it. Number 5 is interesting too. So neglected roles. So we think about this in like real drug addiction, right? Like where you stop, meeting your responsibilities at work, school, and home. But sugar can start to bleed over into that as well. So some of the things you're talking about, right? Like if you have a sugar hangover where you end up having to take a nap or something like that, like that'll interfere with your ability to have, perform work and school and home life stuff as you could, or as well as you could. And so number 6 then is social and interpersonal problems. This includes isolating so that you can go eat your food in private. Spending less time in social things because you want to go home and eat your whatever you want to eat. Number 7 is actual withdrawal, physiological withdrawal symptoms. And so since sugar hits our opiate receptors in our brain, sugar withdrawal can feel just like a hard opiate drug withdrawal. I've had some of my clients that have had this so severely happen to them. So it literally feels like you're going off of heroin, like aches and shakes and shivers and fever, kind of like flu feeling, headaches, like really severe joint pains and things like that. So when people get into heavy use like that, they literally can feel like they're withdrawing off of heroin. And I've had a few people that have gone on the keto journey with me, and they were such heavy sugar users to start with. Day 3 of their withdrawal of this, they're literally under their desk like a George Costanza hiding under the desk at work. And they're like, what is keto doing to me? And I'm like, this is actually a sign that you really need to get off of the amount of sugar and refined, processed stuff that you're eating if you're having this much of a withdrawal. So, and then hazardous use of it. So we were talking about like eating while driving, right? So nobody's ever there may be somebody out there that does it, but like, you're not typically going to eat like steak and broccoli while you're driving.
Right.
You can wait till you get home to eat that. Whereas like, sugared, refined, processed stuff, even fast food, that sugary stuff, like eating while you're driving can be a little dangerous. And so that's sign number 8 that you may have an issue with sugar. So,
check a lot of boxes there.
Yeah. Well, then I want to, talk a little bit more too then about like, why is sugar so hard to give up? Right. Part of it is then a lot of things I've talked about already is that it activates addiction part of the brain. It's hyper concentrated, right? So sugar in nature doesn't exist the way that we consume it. Maybe there's some in fruit. You could get sugar cane, but that's only a regional thing, right? Like nobody's got sugar canes in their kitchen or anything like that. And so we've just, as humans, figured out ways of purifying it and concentrating it, and it creates this unnatural dose that we couldn't get in any natural foods. And again, like I said, it hits those opiate receptors in your brain. Here's a little fun fact too, is that sugar water is used as a pain reliever for infants. And any little boy or a man has had a circumcision, they're given sugar water as a pain reliever before they do that procedure.
Oh my God.
So that's how potent it is of a pain reliever for sugar. And I talked to you about like that autopilot thing that happens as well. And one of the things that influences how addictive something is how convenient and frequent we can use it. So because sugar is ubiquitous, right? Like it's easy, it's everywhere, it's socially acceptable, it's just empty calories, right? It's how we show love to each other. Or just, you look a little, one of my best friends is her grandma always told her like, oh, have a little sugar. She literally thought that sugar fixed everything. She's like, you're looking a little peaked, like you're not feeling well, you need a little more sugar, probably more sugar in your diet. So and so the more frequent you can use something, the more situations your brain memorizes the use pattern, the more cues you have in your environment, right? Like could be the time of the day, the place you are, like going to the movies. It could be, driving. For me, initially, my dad would always stop on a road trip and have us go to the convenience store and fill up a bag of candy. And so when I first was doing keto, it was really hard. When I got in the car, I wanted to go have something sweet to eat at the same time. So the more, cues you have that you use that substance. So that's are all the reasons why sugar is so hard to give up.
And it's ingrained in like our social lives. I mean, anytime you get together with someone, I mean, there's food involved, there's like desserts involved. And it's so interesting. What I've noticed is it's like at the end of the night, they're like, oh no, take it. I shouldn't take any of this home. I was like, well, why don't you bring it in the house?
Yeah.
It's like, and food, and like people show a lot of love through food as well. And especially like homemade, like family recipes and things that may not always be the healthiest. So it's like tough to also try to like, not indulge out of fear of obligation that you don't want to offend someone either, but while also putting yourself first and being like, no, I'm doing this for myself and my own reasons so I can be a better family member, coworker, whatever it is as well. But it's that environment thing is huge,
Yeah. Well, it's a very Southern thing too, that like, well, you don't want to offend anybody, so you got to have just a little bit of it.
Yeah.
No, well, and you're right. And that the reason it's so associated with showing love is that the neurochemicals that it triggers in our brain, endorphins and opiates, that simulates the feeling of love. And so there's a reason why we use those things instead of actually just showing love. We're like, no, I want to chemically make you feel it.
Yeah.
Of these items. So, I've got 5 tips for getting off sugar without cravings. Do you want to hear them, Joel?
Oh, please let them rip.
So number 1 is getting adequate protein, especially at breakfast. So 20 to 30 grams of protein for breakfast or more, and at every meal. So what this does is it sets the stage for having stable blood sugar. And so adequate, and protein, we actually have a protein appetite. And there's a doctor out there right now, Dr. Ted Naiman, he talks about the protein leveraged hypothesis, where and it's not his theory, he's the one I learned it from though, where it's like, because we have a certain amount of protein that we need, part of the reason why we overeat is because a lot of these foods are very low in protein and we're trying to meet our protein needs, and so we overeat them. And so if you get your protein need met first, your appetite overall will be lower. But also having adequate protein helps your blood sugar stay nice and stable, and that greatly reduces your sugar cravings. Another one that usually sounds insane for people, but you did this already, is no sweet at all for 30 days. So not only no sugar, but I actually say nothing sweet at all. So no sugar-free sugars. The reason for this is that it will actually, it rewires the autopilot thing in your brain, and it also reorganizes your taste buds. So this is a fun fact, that if you avoid anything sweet at all, your taste buds will create more savory ones and less sweet ones. So did you notice, I don't know if you kept sweet stuff in, like sugar-free sweets, but did you notice that like less sweet is like almost gross now? Like things that were...
What I did was I did some fruit. I didn't do like super ripe bananas or dates, or I was very mindful about like just not eating much sugar in general, but I would do some natural sugars, but nothing heavy. I really wanted to kind of be mindful about it in general. And but I can tell a difference just in how sweet like an orange tastes now. Like when you're not like dumbing down with all this processed food, like your taste buds actually, I think maybe they regenerate, and you like fruit tastes like candy now. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So it makes your existing sweet taste buds much more sensitive. And so a little goes a long way at that point. So and I actually recommend, if people struggle, because a lot of people I worked with, like they're self-proclaimed sugar addicts when I work with them, and they'll say like, oh, I've tried to give it up so many times, and the cravings are just too intense. I can't even stand it. So this approach that I'm talking about actually will get rid of the cravings. So no sweet at all. So part of that, the taste buds we talked about, but also it rewires the brain. So when you crave something and you give your taste buds what it's craving, it reinforces it. It says, good job, craving, come back again tomorrow at the same time. It's very reinforcing. And in fact, it invites its friends to come back tomorrow as well. And so even if you're doing, your body can't tell the difference between real sugar and, artificial sugars on your tongue, right? Your brain, the way it processes is like, no, that's sweet. Like, that's all I know. And, oh, I got rewarded for craving with the sweet, so I'm going to crave more. And so if you actually don't give in to the cravings by having something sweet, you make them go away. Now, it's like most things with, addiction, they say like the first 3 days are typically the hardest. But if you make it past that, then the cravings actually completely go away. Because it's kind of like if, do you have kids, Joel? No, I have a dog.
Okay. Well, like, if you imagine a child or, a dog that's been spoiled, right? That like is throwing a fit because they want something. And if they throw the fit and you give it to them, they're going to throw the fit again. Right. But if you trying to correct poor training in the past, where you're like, okay, I gave him a bag of treats and sugar every time. Now I don't want him to have it. The first 3 days of not giving into that anymore, like imagine with a child, they would throw a tantrum like bigger than they did before the first 3 days, but eventually they'd stop. They're going to stop if they realize you are really serious. You're not going to give them that. So I think of the cravings in our brain are like little kids throwing a tantrum. If you reward them, they do it more.
Yeah. It could take a few, for people listening who are like, I'd like to do 30 days. I would honestly say up until day 15 or 20, like it's hit or miss. Like you may be evil, like edgy, angry, like almost conspiratorial in a sense of like people, I don't know, like my brain went to some dark places getting off of it, as it does every time. Or when I get on it, then I start to have these negative thoughts and things as well, which is so weird. But like, yeah, it's like, it takes, the withdrawals are very real. And I think it's worth people doing just to understand like what's at stake. Like not only just your health physically, but mentally and relationships you have. Like sugar affects us all in ways that are completely invisible because it's just become ingrained with who we are. But it's insidious like that.
Well, next time you do it, I've got a couple more tips here too, but next time you do it, try doing all of these and see, it shouldn't be a month of misery or even 15 days. Like
great.
Typically following all these by the second week, it'll be like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I haven't had cravings or these thoughts, right? So maybe the protein for you, I would really avoid even the fruits and things like that too. And here's another big one too, is avoiding sensory input to minimize the cues, the craving cues, right? So don't look at or listen to or smell any sweet things. So like don't walk through the bakery and go, oh, I wish I could have all these things, like, because that just cues your brain and that turns on the cravings and the misery. Don't look at, so for me, I had to stop watching cooking shows that I watched all the time in the past. Stop looking up recipes on Pinterest, stop fantasizing about like, wow, I can't wait till I can have blah, blah, blah again. And also not looking for substitutes for it, right? So not trying to find, because your brain can't tell the difference between a real cupcake and a sugar substitute cupcake, right? That's the same thing to your brain. It like looks the same. It's going to cue the same pathways too. So avoiding any pseudo sugary foods, no sugar-free sugars. And so that ends up being a really big one as well, as avoiding the cues. So
social media is a big one too. Like unfollowing your favorite donut shop and all that goes a long way.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Avoid anytime you see anything like that. You basically, I talk about the stop sign technique. It's like literally picture a stop sign, tell yourself stop, think about something else. I still have to avoid like, one of my favorite times of the year was always like the week after a holiday where all the candy was half price. I have to avoid grocery stores, like the big table of garbage they put out half off. Cause like growing up poor, I was like, well, it's a bargain. It's so cheap. And all the stuff that I can buy, like, nope. Yes. I had enough of those my whole life. I don't need any Cadbury eggs anymore. So all right.
Those are very helpful. Yeah, I'll remember that for sure. Yeah, I'm glad your listeners are getting to learn this. So things I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Well, you figured out some really clever stuff though, on your own too. So associating it with the negative instead of fantasizing about the pleasure of it. And what was the other one that you did, giving it up for 30 days? There was another one that you did as well that was like, oh, that's so smart.
I don't know. Brushing my teeth has helped.
Okay.
So brushing my teeth after a meal to kind of get all that out of there. And then the late night thing, brushing my teeth right after dinner.
Okay.
Has helped me with any like late night eating and things like that. But it's getting myself to do it. It's like I've had several nights where I was like, I should go brush my teeth right now because it'll just take all the stress away. And then I don't. And then I end up like overeating on something, so I'm trying and learning just like everyone else.
Well, that brushing the teeth, like it's two things you're doing there, right? So it's a cue to your brain that we're done eating, right? You brush your teeth and then you don't eat anymore, right? So you cued that habit loop, but also it's like you're doing something different than you used to. So you used to like eat and not brush your teeth. So the fact that you eat and then brush your teeth, like your brain's like, oh, this is a new thing we're doing. I better pay attention and learn the way that we do this. So
I love that.
Have you ever used any streak tracker apps or anything? Like how many days in a row you did something?
But I've done it on like a calendar, like a 30-day blank calendar, and I'll X off each day. That's helped me stay consistent.
Your brain loves those. So things that get immediately rewarded get repeated. And so one of the reasons why it's so hard to get off sugar also is because it gets immediate reward. And so when you don't have sugar, there's no immediate reward. But a cool thing is that a checkbox is an immediate reward to your brain. And so, and then seeing the progression of that, like how many days in a row is also an immediate reward. So that's a little trick that you can do as well, is give yourself some kind of immediate reward, which literally the brain is that kind of silly, like it's gamification of it. And that show that, if you can gamify it, you give yourself a gold star, a sticker, a checkbox on there, like that literally gives you an immediate reward, and that will get repeated.
I love that. I haven't heard that before. That's gold. You're dropping dimes out here. It's like you're an expert or something.
I'm very skilled at keto, but I nerd out at the psychology side of it, right? So it's that's what I bring to my clients. I'm really passionate about, because you don't really have a lot of people talking about both sides. Like, people are experts in little bits of this, and like, it's really important if people are trying to make a long-term dietary change. We need to address, like, what makes habits, what makes us want to keep doing the thing that's a bad habit versus, not eating sugar. There's no reward in that. So you got to figure all these things out. And then the neurochemistry of addiction, because that's really, so prevalent in our food world that we live in. Like, there's addictive foods everywhere. And like you said, it's ubiquitous, and it's love, and it's on every corner, and it's how we soothe ourselves. And so, I love talking about all this. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. So
I love learning about it. Seriously.
I know we're coming up on your time. You got to go do your husbandly duties. Was there anything else you were hoping I would ask about? Anything else that you want to share about your sugar-free stint? Any questions, comments from our viewers, listeners?
I mean, I think for me, maybe I would say for people who are listening to this and are like, I've always wanted to try to quit sugar or be better at like being more mindful about consumption or whatever, of like just taking it incrementally, like one step at a time. Because even for me to get to being able to fairly comfortably like go 30 days without sugar and not really like hate myself for it, like I've done in the past, like when I've tried to do this a lot, it's just I've taken each attempt as a lesson, and just making sure I'm learning from what I'm doing and remembering what works, what doesn't work. So like this time I knew having the calendar that I could X off every day, I knew that would help. So it's just kind of like making it a goal, but like how it goes, and then having people in your corner like Carole. Like, your environment is huge. And a lot of the times it's like in a household, one person may have one set of dietary standards and then the other is the opposite, So it's just making sure you have people in your corner to help and support you through this journey. But it's just one bite at a time, literally, it's one good decision at a time will lead to another good decision. And if you don't make the quote best decision, not beating yourself up, but almost celebrating it as like, oh, great, look at this lesson I learned. That, when I am left alone, maybe I do eat the cereal and then have to go to the grocery store and buy another one and act like nothing happened. Those things. But
replace the evidence.
I could I've confessed more on this than I probably have about any of my eating habits. But what would you say for me, kind of where I'm at now? I feel good about where I'm at with sugar. And I want to continue being mindful, and I don't really like aspire to be like, oh, in June I'll go back to eating sugar. Like, I really want to I don't want to say completely cut it out just for the sake of whatever circumstance or whatnot, but I do want to make this like my lifelong kind of routine now, is that I don't really eat that much sugar, and I don't really want to and things. But for an expert like you, do you have any advice on how to sustain that?
Yeah, so just be mindful like you are. It sounds like you're very self-aware that the tendency is for it to escalate, right? So you've got this 30 days sugar-free. It's kind of like it restarts. So much less goes further now. And so that's why you feel like, oh, I can have a little bit here and there and I don't have crazy cravings. But just know that the tendency of the substance is that you'll want more and more and more over time. And so maybe for you, you just have I don't know, you have some kind of a hard line where you're like, okay, when things get to this point, it's time to do another 30-day, reset or something like that. Right. But just, knowing that where you're at now, as long as you keep sugar in your life, it's going to increase. It just will, because that's just the way that it works. Right. Kind of like,
oh yeah,
I quit heroin 30 days and now I only use it once a week. I'm going to be able to keep it like this. Right. And you're like, it's like quitting smoking or quitting drinking. Right. So, so I would just have decide what your lines are, right? Like, for drinking, maybe people do dry January, they quit. And then for some people, they're able to go like, okay, just once a week or once a month or something like that. Maybe they can stay there because they create there's a book called Bright Lines that kind of talks about like it's for eating. And you basically you draw your lines of yes and no's, right? I allow myself to do this, but I don't do this. So maybe it's for you set out, I'll have sugar on my birthday or, at a wedding or birthday or something like that, or just, I would encourage you to figure out where your lines in the sand are, so that when things have gone too far. And it doesn't work for everybody, right? So some people struggle so much that they're just like, for me, no sugar, hard no, I don't want to mess with it anymore. But for you, it sounds like it may be something where you could just kind of make some rules for yourself and follow that. And as long as they don't get outside, you don't start coloring outside the lines, then, that can work. So,
but even like, I saw you did a giveaway with like Keto Chow. So like even those almost like alternatives to processed food can become a substitute, and it not like, I love cereal. So
yeah.
like,
I saw you with the Catalina Crunch.
if it wasn't $8 a bag, I tagged them like, yo, let's do a brand deal. Yeah. I was like, I got it on clearance. So I really enjoyed that cereal and such. So it's like maybe making that more part of it as well, and not like making that part of it. And I can be more consistent with that as opposed to like once a month or whatever. It's like, I just want to be confident and not feel like, oh my gosh, there's a cake. If everyone left the room right now, I would have to eat it all and then bake another one before they got back. You know what I mean?
Well, add that as symptom number 9 that you're addicted to sugar is you pre-plan how you're going to replace the thing you just ate because you don't want anybody to know you ate it.
And you have to like clock it out. Okay, she gets them at 5. Yeah. So if I do it at 11, I'll have time.
Well, and you're fantasizing about some kind of time travel that you could just go back in time and replace it before you even ate it. Is that?
You're good. You're good.
Brilliant scientist, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, the Bright Lines is one way of looking at this, where you make rules for yourself of yes and no. And another one is the concept of red light, yellow light, green light foods. So for my clients, when they're bringing things back in, I have them watch subjectively. How does this affect you? Can you eat this food without it causing you to be obsessed or to crave it? And so those end up being, green light foods, things that you can have in your house. You eat them in normal portions, you enjoy them, but they don't call your name all night long. You don't like eat some and then fantasize about eating the rest of it. Those would be green light foods, and they can live in your house. Then maybe there's yellow light foods that, for me, nuts are yellow light food. Like, I don't like to have them in the house because I want to eat all of them. But if I, go on a trip or something, or if I can pre-portion them, I can, have them out someplace else, I'll eat them. But also I don't like them living in my house because I'll want to overeat them. Then there's red light foods, which are the ones that like you can't control yourself no matter what the portion size is, no matter what the environment is. And you've just decided that those are hard. No, I don't eat those. They don't serve me. I'm not able to control myself. And I don't like the misery of living in that like obsession craving place. So, that's another concept that you could use about deciding like which ones work and which ones don't for you. And you also have the not obligation, but the prerogative to reassess at any time. Like you can change categories and change like, okay, that worked for a while and now it doesn't. So I'm going to reassess and reset up my parameters for myself. So
I love that. Yeah. I'm excited about that. Yeah. I just love the topic because
try that.
it's only become more relevant. Like People are slowly getting hip to sugars in like 80% of the food and grocery stores, and it's killing us. Sugar literally kills us. It makes us dumber.
Yeah.
So people are slowly getting onto that. So this is only gonna become more relevant. So I just want to do my best, Carole. I just want to do and be my best.
Did you find that during your 30 days sugar free that you like, did it affect your comedy? Like, did you find you were more prolific writer or sharper or anything like that? Or
Everything's better.
Okay.
Everything.
You got 100% more subscribers on your YouTube channel during that time, and
it's like
you sold more comedy classes.
It all, like, honestly, like, it's like the mindset is better and more optimistic and healthier. You feel better physically. I mean, I'm a better husband. I'm a better everything when I'm not on sugar, to be honest. And that's why, like, this time I'm like, I want to, you know, I've gone on and off for a while, for several years, you know, and I want to be like, I'm not aiming for the middle with like my comedy career, you know, so I do want to be taking care of myself so I can achieve all the things I want to achieve. And I know at the heart of it, quitting drinking was a huge one for me, because that was one where it's like, you know, one is too many, 1,000's not enough, you know, it's like that whole thing. So I caught myself with that in the drinkings, then I'm seeing it with sugar, and I've seen it with sugar. And I know getting this under control just helps my life overall. It's the mental side of it. Like, physically, you feel good and you look good, but like mentally, I don't know how much people understand how much sugar affects our mental health.
Yeah. There's a book that came out, it was last year or the year before, by Gary Taubes, called The Case Against Sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, you know, 50 or 60 years ago, probably about 60 years ago now, where literally government officials were paid off to say, oh, it's fat that's causing heart disease and everything. It's not sugar. Look over there. So it's finally like coming out that was what happened. And so, you know, but we're still in a place where most people just think sugar's, you know, empty calories still, right? Like, oh, maybe it causes tooth decay, but can't be that bad for us. But
yeah.
So I'm not getting any sugar sponsors now.
I'm glad this happened at this moment, though. Like, meeting and getting to talk through this at this moment. And I'm hoping it helps people in general, you know, with their own health journeys, because it is a journey, and it's up and down and all around. But enjoying the process is what helps me maintain just consistency and optimism on days when you just don't feel like it, or my brain will tell me it's dumb and it doesn't matter, you know, like, oh, this one time will be fine. And then the one time evolves into 1 month, you know what I mean? So just I call
that the carb monster in your brain. It's always trying to talk you into like, oh, one won't hurt. Like one of my ladies was in a 12-step program, and she shared with me the phrase they talk about is that while you're inside getting sober, your addiction's in the parking lot doing push-ups.
That's so good.
Ready to tackle you as soon as you come outside again. So like
that's hilarious. Well, you're helping a lot of people, Carole. I appreciate you having me be a part of what you're doing here.
Oh, thank you, Joel. I've so enjoyed getting to know you. Like, it's just really cool to find out, like, you know, how committed you are to just trying to be a better version of yourself. And, you know, what we call in the health space is biohacking. Like, that's what you're doing, and trying to figure out how to be better. And, you know, all the stuff that you're doing, your podcast. I didn't remember how I heard about you, but I think it was through your podcast. Somebody recommended your podcast probably a year or two ago now. And then just, you know, starting to catch you on your lives and everything like that. It's really fun. If you guys don't know, Joel's got classes you do. Do you do any coaching, or is it just some online classes you do too? And you've got a community.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything for everyone. You know, I have some shorter workshops about joke writing and storytelling and such. And then I have bigger, like, full-length master classes. And I do one-on-one coaching as well. And I have the podcast Hot Breath that's on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And then my own stand-up, you know, my website, joelbyerscomedy.com, I self-produced my own comedy special called The Trophy Husband. that's available on my website. But yeah, I mean, I think in everything I do, it's my mom was a teacher. She always taught us to be of service. You know, she was a single mom with 3 kids on a teacher salary. We may not have the money to donate, but she always instilled us like the service mentality and always giving what we can, whether it's time or books or whatnot. So I've kind of instilled that into my entire career, whether it's with my comedy, where I want to make sure people are laughing, but also learning and connecting, you know, grandkids to grandparents. I really just at this point in my life and career, I'm finding service to be a big motivator for all that I'm doing. So whether you're an aspiring comedian or just a comedy fan, I think you'll enjoy the hot breathiverse, as we call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just getting to see this other side of you too, of like how just Joel, you're a good guy. You're a good person. I can tell through and through.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. My mom will be proud you said that.
Oh, that's all we want in life, our mama to be proud of us. Yeah.
Hey, honey.
So people can find you. Did I spell your website right? JoelByars.com.
You did.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's that keto clarity.
Yes. Yeah. So check his website out. You can find all of his things he mentioned again, like whether you're a comedian, a comedy fan, check it out and cheer him on in his sugar-free journey.
Yeah, we'll have to do an update and like see what we're doing and what's goody. You know, I'm excited to see what happens.
Will you send me your before and after photos of the face that you did so we can put that in our blog post? We turn this into a blog post too, so that would be really cool. So,
I'll definitely send that to you. That was a game changer. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for watching today. Keto Chat Live. We're here most every Thursday. Let's see. Share with a friend. Give us a review. Remember, help us grow and we help you shrink. Thank you, Joel, for being here.
Thank you, Carole. Thanks for having me.
I'll see you next time. Yeah, bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye,
wait, where's my turn off the live thing? Oh, there it is.